Episode of Womb Wednesdays, a series brought to you by Black Millennials for Flint that amplifies Black, Latinx, and Indigenous perspectives on maternal health and environmental justice. My name is Cynthia Gutierrez. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. I am zooming in from the Ohlone land in East Oakland, California, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram under the hashtag @CYNADRIANA Sin Adriana, and I am one of your co-hosts.
And good evening. My name is Anna Rodney. I am the executive director of MomCares. My pronouns are she and her. I am currently sitting on the Piscataway land here in Baltimore, Maryland. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Rising Mama, MAMA, or MomCares Baltimore on Instagram. The theme of this episode is green, queer, and queer mamas, inclusivity in the childbirthing, and environmental justice spaces. Homophobia has no place in childbirth, but our oppressive, heterocisgender dominating society creates a really toxic experience for many trans and non-gender conforming parents-to-be. Many members of the LGBTQIA community also experience unstable housing and unhealthy living conditions, putting them and their growing babies at severe risk. In this conversation, we will be discussing these dynamics and strategies for impactful allyship.
We are humbled and excited to welcome our special guest for this episode. Please feel free to introduce yourself, Gwen.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And I'm Gwendolyn Clemens. I am the Executive Director of Relationship Unleashed. We are a community-based service provider, nonprofit organization in Memphis, Tennessee, where we provide comprehensive educational services to the Black LGBTQ community. And you can find me on social media under Gwen_Clemens on Facebook and IG. And also our organization is Relationship Unleashed. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Y'all are everywhere.
Everywhere.
Welcome, and let's get into this conversation.
Awesome.
So Black, Latinx, and Indigenous women are impacted by some of the most deeply rooted acts of racial violence. But Black members of the LGBTQI community are even more at risk of acts such as domestic violence. Research data shows that 43.8% of lesbian women and 61.1% of bisexual women have experienced rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner at some point in their lifetime, which is much higher than the also inhumane 35% of heterosexual women. Connecting to environmental justice, issues such as lead poisoning have also been attributed to increased violence, resulting in challenges with mental health. In your work, how have you created safe space for Black and Latinx queer birthing people who have experienced hate crimes and or domestic violence?
Oh, you're still muted.
Let me unmute. So that's a loaded question. And it's really good that you asked that question, because it's kind of like a segue into what's going and what's happening like right now in the United States, particularly in Tennessee, Florida, Idaho, Montana. We see an introduction of 250 anti-LGBTQ laws that has been introduced in legislation, from last year and it's carrying over into this year. And for me, those types of laws, right, it kind of sends a signal like to the state and to the citizens of the state that it's okay to discriminate and commit crimes, hate crimes, domestic violence, because individuals such as myself and my trans sisters and brothers aren't protected by the state. So that it seems like it's open season and open range on people who identify as LGBTQIA+. And one thing that's really striking to me is like the uptick in these types of legislation since 2008. And it's almost as if they want to roll back all advancements that was done under Obama administration. Fortunately, here in Memphis, Tennessee, we have LGBTQ liaisons that work for the sheriff department and the police department, which was implemented as an urging of an organization here called Out Memphis. They are a community-based organization, and they were able to obtain these particular officers to be trained in cultural competency to handle those types of cases, whereas it's like a 24-hour person that you can contact directly, and he oversees how the police officer that may respond to you will handle your situation, because in the past there were reports of discrimination from even officers coming to a scene where a domestic violence case may be involved. With trans people, how they treat them, the language that they use. And also we have an organization here called the Family Safety Center, where they actually go into the local police department and train them on how to handle same gender loving people, trans people on calls and things of that nature. And we have an organization here that we refer out to called Love Doesn't Hate. And she particularly deals with domestic violence issues for LGBTQIA+ people. So we have been able, maybe in the last 3 to 4 years, make some segue and leeway to become more active and involved with organizations and collaborations to handle and particularly address these issues. Here in our organization, we are connected with all of the organizations that I mentioned, and we use them for the services in the time of need. And one thing that worked in our favor up until this year, my son was the LGBTQIA police officer for the city of Memphis. So we had a direct service connection in-house here. And he just recently resigned from that position because he's taken on another position in another department with the mayor. So I think it's important, that we have to provide training. We have to provide, be visible and have agencies that particularly want to address these problems and in existence. So far we've been able, I would give us maybe a B-, because we still have opposition from local laws, local legislation here in the city of Memphis. And one thing I will mention that our organization was particularly involved, we were able to pass, lobby the local city council and get legislation passed for protection for workers that work for the city of Memphis to address anti-discrimination work laws. We failed in Shelby County, but we anticipate going back again, because if you all know, I told you I was in Tennessee, Memphis, which is historically known as the Bible Belt. So we are up against a lot of religious institutions that have a lot of power with elected officials. And we're also looking at supporting individuals from our community into these offices. And that's one way we can kind of shift some legislative laws that I mentioned, those anti-LGBTQ laws out there, by getting people that look like us in those elected seats.
Thank you, Gwen. I want to kind of open the floor a little bit because you've alluded to the work of Relationship Unleashed, but I want to kind of for you to dig a little bit deeper down into what exactly it is that this organization that you founded is doing in the Tennessee area and beyond, outside of the policy work and the divine connections in the police department. But could you tell us a little bit more about what you all do?
Absolutely. So we were founded in 2014. And before that, we are a small grassroots organization. Actually, I'm the only full-time person. So that's how small we are. We have 2 other part-time people and a host of volunteers, thank God. We were small. We're small because I worked a full-time job, because we didn't have proper funding to do all the things that we needed to do. And fortunately, around 2020, we were funded through Gilead, which allowed us to branch out a lot further into our reach and the work that we do. So we do comprehensive workshops. Prior to the pandemic, we were doing them every Monday. But when the world shut down, everything stopped, and then we had to kind of pivot and go virtually. So we do HIV and AIDS is our bread and butter for the community. We serve a large population of Black men living with HIV and AIDS and cisgender women. We have 2 programs here for that. And we do mental health, we do trauma-informed care, well and wellness, harm reduction. So, and actually, we were funded through the Harm Reduction Coalition for 3 years. So we're really getting into harm reduction. And we also were fortunate enough to secure a grant with the CDC Foundation, where we run a COVID campaign here to encourage members in the Black LGBTQ community to become vaccinated. Because what we found in our area was that we had a low vaccination rate, and the community was being highly impacted in a lot of poverty areas. We identified 7 zip codes. So fortunately, we've been pretty busy this year. And we host a monthly community event called Taco Tuesdays. And what we found with Taco Tuesdays was that we put education and art together. Because when we just say, hey, listen, we're doing a prep education for Black women, and we maybe have 5 to 10 people show up, because that's not sexy. But we throw in arts, live entertainment, live music. We got Taco Tuesdays. We have an uptick to up to 85 to 100 people that come to the event. And while we have them here, we capture them with our educational component. So we always have educational component built in on that. And that has served us really well. We started that in October, and we do 1 event a month. And it's been well received, and it's growing, and people are anticipating that event. So it was just like, okay, listen, how can we further reach our community? We came up with a theme, and boom, it works. So we work with the local health department here. We work with a couple of health providers here, particularly affirming medical providers in our city that understand how to serve transgender individuals, how to serve individuals living positively. So, yes.
It's amazing what a pandemic can push, how a pandemic can push innovation on us. We're already doing the work. We already know that the work is important, but I'm really in awe of what has been created to make sure that people are still getting the support and the services that they need in the midst of a pandemic. So thank you so much for that.
So let me add one other thing that I didn't mention. So one distinction that we have that I think as another layer of our organization is that we also have an LGBTQ publication. You might can see behind me the wall of magazines. So it's called the Unleashed Voice magazine. And it's an LGBTQ Black publication for the Black LGBTQ community. We're a national magazine and a local radio show. So in addition to the nonprofit, we use our media platform to further spread our messages in print and digital. And we use the radio show also to reach a broader audience that may not be able to come to our event. And we host that on Tuesdays. It's called the Unleashed Voice Talk Show every Tuesday at 7 o'clock on Facebook Live. So we Yeah,
that is so incredible. We need to get a copy of this magazine, and just for folks to know, they can just go on your Facebook to hear the radio sessions live.
Yes, we just finished a series talking about the Black church and the Black LGBTQ community. We was addressing harmful theology, religious dogma. We had 3 guests. We did a 3-part series on that in February, and then we're getting ready for Women's Month this month.
I definitely need to connect with you offline. One of my many jobs, I'm a program manager for a clinic that serves pregnant people living with HIV. And so based in San Francisco, California. So I would definitely love to link up and get your resources over here to the Bay Area.
Absolutely.
Virtual ones.
Yes, last Tuesday was Dr. Dante Morrison, and he's from California. He just finished his PhD, and he did his dissertation on the church effect on Black gay men. So yeah, he's in California.
That's great. I'm sure Anna and I will continue asking you more about your organizations, because your virtual programming and the ways that you've had to pivot in the pandemic are truly remarkable. My next question for our time together is a long question, and we'll make sure to include that in the chat for you. But lead-based paint is one of the most common ways in which children and birthing people are exposed to lead. In Memphis, Tennessee, for example, over 50,000 homes standing today were built before 1978, which makes those living in them highly susceptible to exposure to lead-based paint. On top of this, recent data from the Williams Institute states that almost 20% of LGBTQIA plus renters are behind on their rent during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, making this already vulnerable community even more at risk for housing instability and a lack of access to safe, quality, and affordable housing. Please share some of the obstacles and some of the possible solutions to the LGBTQI plus housing crisis that directly impacts Black birthing folks or the families that you serve in your organization.
That's real simple. Money. Lack of access to capital, will really cripple and handicap you. And I really didn't know the depth of lead poisoning, the water crisis, none of the things that lead-based paint, in association with mental health, and all of the things that you all promote now through your work, really until I met Ms. Adams. And I began to follow her work and looking at all of the tenets that that the organization stand for, and particularly like the Flint issue that highlighted, what happened with their water crisis. I did not know that these things even existed. And I looked at some facts that they found out, like about Baltimore. They thought that may have affected Freddie Gray when he was killed by the police officer, and the behavior associated with it. So just understanding those dynamics, because one great equalizer, y'all, is information and education. And without that, we're just really like lambs just out here wandering around, just being led to slaughter. So a good thing for us was in 2020, when the pandemic first came and just everything shut down, the good folks at Gilead allow us to convert our grant fund into general operating fund. So we were able to use that money to provide rental assistance. We were able to use that money to provide light bill assistance. We appropriated over $20,000 as a small organization. Our budget was only $55,000. So we used over $20,000 of that budget to help folks buy PPP, because, masks was a shortage in masks, and, we didn't know what to do. And buy food for individuals. We did gift cards. So we were able to help individuals survive during that crisis, and also to support our staff. We were able to pay them, even though we weren't really doing any work, but we were able to pay them because we had transgender individual working with us, and a cisgender woman living positively was working with us. Unfortunately, we lost her She died 2021 in May. But we were one of that was a success for us, but one big barrier that's been with us is securing funding. And a lot of Black-led small grassroots organizations, we often get passed over for funding. And that was one of the challenges that I had. And we were just, beating the table like, listen, you guys keep funding the same organizations, but the issues aren't being addressed. And the community don't trust them. I don't know what they're doing with the money because we don't see no results with the money. Pass some money around and allow us to do some of this work and see, can we make some inroads in some of the problems? And just with the little funding that we have, we began to see that we are making a difference because now individuals have options. And then now they have organizations that are Black-led serving the Black community. We don't have to go over and ask you all to do something for us anymore. We kind of built our own table. So that was a great success for us to start finally receiving some measure of funding to allow to be able to do some work. And we're still underfunded, in my words, because the amount of work that I require, it takes 3 grants to even pay me $35,000 a year with 3 grants pieced together. So y'all know how I feel, right? But we've been doing this since 2014, and it's a work of passion. Because if I was doing it just for the pay, I would have been quit. It was like, but it's something that I'm anchored into. The HIV is really important to me because I had a trans sister that died from HIV in 1991. And just seeing what my family went through from lack of education, lack of services, lack of resources, the way she was treated, even with medical care. I never want to see another family to go through that. And that was one of the reasons that we really founded this organization, to make a difference with family and to provide the education that they need to help them understand, because we didn't have anybody to turn to help us understand what we were dealing with even my family. It was discrimination in my family toward her. She lived 1 year after her diagnosis. So it was just disheartening. And even I didn't know, I didn't know. So funding, I can't reiterate that enough, how much is needed. And one thing that I wrote, I kind of took a little notes down, and I mentioned having individuals in place that understand the issues that we have. We have a big divide in our country right now between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And it speaks volumes when you see the kind of things that's happening in our legislative body in Congress and in the Senate. And really, the forecast of the future is frightening. It's frightening to me, with 2024 looming over our head, and our past president anticipating running again, and the language that they use, and the white supremacy that's rising its ugly head. And currently, you look at the battle in Poland, and then I look at the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, and it makes me wonder, like, what really.
Oh, you're muted.
Happen. What's the difference? So when we have these type of legislations that seems like it want to erase us, it want to annihilate us, that makes doing your work even more harder.
I can't imagine. Well, I can, but it's maddening, I'm sure, to first of all have such a close connection to the work. My condolences to you and your family for losing your trans sister. But it's maddening to know that there is a possibility for a resolve, and that there are people in power that are actively working against that resolve. And so my hat goes off to you and to the work that you all are doing. And I second, I was sending off my reactions, funding. Money makes the world go round. And, it might not make you happy, but it does fix a lot of things, right? So just thank you for that. I think I want to go kind of back to something that you mentioned earlier. We were talking about the church. And so despite how delicate it may be to have to admit that many folks, Black folks and Latinx folks in the community hold very homophobic and transphobic and misogynistic ideas. And many of them are housed within the faith-based community, unfortunately. Can you share some of the challenges and victories in your work to dismantle that homophobia and misogyny, while best serving the community and serving birthing folks within your work?
Absolutely. It's always a challenge in Memphis, Tennessee, with homophobia from the religious community, because Church of God in Christ is here, headquartered here. Y'all call their name. Yeah, they are here. And, they're one of the biggest proponents and culprits of anti-gay, anti-discrimination from a religious point of view. And we have another church here called Bellevue Baptist. They have about 20,000 members. So they always will approach the commissioner or something to stop any type of equality type ruling, like gender neutral bathrooms, housing. We have an organization here that was trying to get funding for LGBTQIA plus homeless youth. They opposed using their taxpayers' dollars for that. But we have other same religious groups that form a coalition, religious pastors for all. And this is like a combination of Jews and Episcopalians. It's just a hodgepodge of clergy members that came together that stood up and said, no, we are here for everybody. And so you have one side, it's like the defense and the prosecutor arguing the same words, saying what it says, and this group said it doesn't say that. So we sit here arguing over a book that's, hundreds of years old, and we're in 2022 still talking about the same thing. But we have an inclusive, affirming church here in Memphis, Tennessee, that my son-in-law and my son founded. So it's been in existence since 2012, the Cathedral Praise Church of Memphis. So we are an affirming and inclusive ministry ran by an openly gay pastor here. And we are also members of United Progressive Pentecostal Church, which is an organization in Atlanta, Georgia. And they have churches all over the United States that are also inclusive and affirming. So to me, it's kind of like this week, I don't know if you all saw it, Niecy Nash and her wife was on the cover of Essence.
It was beautiful.
Jessica. So representation matters. When you saw that and you made people pause, even the Brat just had a big wedding. It was on the cover of People magazine. So representation matters. So for me, it's important for us to be out. I'm also an ordained elder in the church. So it's important for me to be out, and people go like, well, being same gender loving and a Christian shouldn't be an oxymoron. So we use our media platform to run head on into these issues. We're intentional. Every issue, we have an article talking about this, why people are leaving the church, talking about their church hurt, talking about how the church can better address it. And I said earlier, we just finished up a 3-part series talking about these things, educating individuals about those religious scriptures, trying to dismantle the tradition and the belief, that we've been taught. Because for me, nobody questioned grandmama. Nobody questioned mama. So I didn't have a choice to say if I was going to be Christian or not, right? So my parents just took me to church and they introduced me to, I used to be Baptist. Then I was Church of God in Christ for 20 years. Now I'm Pentecostal. So we call it Baptist-costals. I'm a little bit of everything. But, I know now right? And I'm able to go out and also help people that are struggling with their sexuality and their spirituality. And believe me or not, believe me, it's still a great deal of individuals that struggle with that. So we use our church, we use our media platform, and we use our, we don't do that much with, that's why one thing I think that's great, because we can kind of steer away from that under the umbrella of the nonprofit, and we can go over here and use it through the media platform. So we don't, cross any legal boundaries about, going out on a religious walk. But we are funded through the University of Wake Forest School of Theology, to run this program, Faith in the Black Church, through Gilead this year.
That's amazing. I just want to give a quick Southern Baptist shout out over here. And you are absolutely right. My mama did not ask me if I felt like getting up, if I wanted to go to Vacation Bible School, if I was interested in revival. I just went. So good. I can attest to that fact. So yes, I think that it sounds like the work is finally starting to catch as far as funding, and it's very exciting to hear that you all are getting the support finally to continue the work.
Thank you.
Something that we're curious about, as yourself, as a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, and as a parent, what is one piece of advice you'd like to give to those watching who may have similar parenting journeys or want to become parents and might have challenges or doubts or obstacles in their way?
Wow. I think for me, I was introduced to the reproductive justice work through Sister Reach. I used to volunteer over there at the organization, and learning about all the work that Ms. Loretta did and all of the other 7 or 8 women that formed that coined that term, that introduced me to a whole spectrum that I really knew nothing about, especially even being same gender loving. We were just out here swinging in the wind. We didn't even know that it was intersectional and that these things connected to our lives, right? And like I said earlier, when we started, that information and education is the great equalizer, because for a lot of people don't really even understand that they have social determinants, or why they're subjected to go out to do sex work. And same gender loving people don't understand, their rights when it comes to being a parent. For instance, my wife and I, we were trying to have a child. And there's an organization here, Choices and Planned Parenthood, they offer services. But if I had not been in this field, I would not have known that I could go there and access that type of service for us as a couple to try to have intro. I had no idea. We were thinking like, okay, average person, or just say 2 women, lay people, well, maybe we can find a man, to donate sperm. But what kind of risk is that? And I know a lot of people that do that. Just there's a lot, not even weighing the risk factors in there, or even thinking about your STDs, STIs, or anything like that. So because we want to become a parent, and it didn't work out for us, but we still had an option, and learning about these service providers out there and the pro-choice movement, and understanding my reproductive rights as a lesbian woman. And one thing in the lesbian community, I have to say this because y'all want me to be transparent, right? We have a great deal of discrimination in the lesbian community for other lesbians who want to mother children, especially masculine presenting women. So even within my own community, I have challenges educating my own community about a woman and a woman's right to bear a child, no matter how she presents herself. But even in the trans community, you have the trans male that still can carry the child. But people, our society, we're so into heteronormative and cisgender, the binary, it confuses people. So you have to be able to have an opportunity to provide and offer education to the community as a whole. And hopefully cognitive dissonance doesn't kick in, and that they receive the information that you giving them to reduce stigma and discrimination that we, run up against. Even within our own families, we still have those challenges. Not wanting to see two men raise a child or two women raise a child, thinking that somehow is going to influence the child's sexuality or sexual preference. So it's a double-edged sword. And I always say, even in 2020, it's still an uphill battle. Like, we still are addressing these issues with the wealth of information that's out there. So every opportunity that we get, we try to bring in medical professionals so that people won't think we have an ulterior motive to try to persuade them one way or another to offer them this information and this education from, that level or perspective, so that they can go in and ask these questions.
One thing that I was thinking about while you were talking, Gwen, is how important representation is, like being able to see couples, not only in magazines and social media. One thing I didn't say in the beginning is I'm a full spectrum doula. And so I remember seeing posts of a trans man pregnant. And to me, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, I'm in San Francisco, Oakland, it is what it is. But the comments on the post were so horrible. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's people on those particular comments were just really uncomfortable of something that they couldn't comprehend, but quite frankly, it isn't theirs to comprehend. It's not their lived experience. It's not their family. It's not their body. It's not their autonomy, right? And so I think even in the doula world, in the reproductive justice world, even in the being pro-choice or for abortion, there's just so many folks that are uncomfortable with the whole spectrum of sexuality and gender and pregnancy. There are some spaces to this day, if I say pregnant people, because I'm very intentional about that, folks look at me like, you meant mothers, right? Like, they'll try to correct me. And I'm like, no, I know exactly what I said. And so what I'm hearing you say is we have these conversations, we educate folks, and we normalize families that look in whatever way they want to look, and normalize birth in these families and raising children and all that.
Right. Absolutely.
So I have one more question for you, Gwen. Okay. So something you don't know about me is I am the resident hippie. I am the resident, I'm the resident touchy-feely person. And so one thing I want to make sure that I'm bringing up during these conversations is the idea of self-care. And so self-care does not have to be a bubble bath or a trip to Miami or whatever. But I think for those who are doing this work and are so connected to this work, that is really hard work and can be very stressful on you mentally, emotionally, physically. It's important for us to remember that there is a need to preserve ourselves so the work can continue for as long as it can. And so my question is, how are you taking care of yourself? Who is taking care of you, right? Like, how is that working for you? How are you making sure that you are continuing in this fight?
Ooh, Anna, guess what? I'm taking off tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. Great. Yeah.
I already said it, okay? Because it's been like a whirlwind week, and I've been burning the midnight oil here. I'm still in the office like right now. So I tell you, I'm really big on mental health. And last night I had a session. I taught a class last night, and I started the class off really talking about suicide. And I used the 3 recent suicides that happened: Regina King's son, Ian Alexander, the mayor out of Huntsville, Maryland, and Miss USA. right? And what made me pause was that her mother termed her as a high functioning, like depression person that suffered from depression, but she was high functioning. Nobody could tell. And that really made me look at myself, because I do a lot. I wear a lot of hats. Like I edit the magazine, we run a radio show, we got the church, we got Relationship Unleashed, we have meetings all day. I have my own coaching business. So I was like, okay, are you like doing this so that when you stop, you don't feel complete, or something like that? And I said, I was already kind of mapping my week out. So I said, okay, Thursday, I'm taking off. Like I'm not picking up the computer. I'm not checking an email. I'm not doing nothing. I'm staying home. I'm doing laundry. I'm going to clean up. I'm going to lounge around all day. And I'm going to do that tomorrow. So I delegated a day this week to take off, to not do anything, to decompress. And so I have a wonderful, supportive wife. She's probably going to call me in a few minutes and say, hey, it's time to come out of that office. And so I like being busy, and I love what I do. So it's not like a job, because I love what I do. I get to do this full time now. I retired from my job after working 25 years with Shelby County government. I was fortunate to get into a program where we could leave regardless of your age after 25 years. So I just retired April of last year. So I get to come to work and do what I love every day now. So I'm finally in a position that I get to, call my own shots. And so I'm really enjoying this ride now. And my body, it lets me know when I'm doing too much. It shuts down, like, so I'm listening to myself a little more. And so I cut out sodas January 1st. So I got my water here.
Okay, we see your water.
No sodas. So I'm kind of on this thing, like to improve. I'm bread is next, and I need to lose a little weight. So I'm just kind of working, my way back to really getting back into putting myself first. And COVID did a lot. Ashley, I share this with you all. My mother passed from COVID in August of last year, 2022. The oxymoron is that I'm running a COVID campaign for the CDC. And COVID divided my family because we had a lot of family members that wouldn't get vaccinated. So I went into really a depression because I felt like I didn't protect my mother. She was 83, healthy, but she was no match, and she was vaccinated, but she didn't get it, have time to get boosted. And somehow it got in her home. We did good for a whole year, keeping her safe, keeping people out. And then when we all got vaccinated, we opened the doors back up to family to come and see her because she loved her grandkids. And we don't know, how she got it, but that really took me out, took all of us out, because that was the matriarch of the family. So I finally get into the point where I can function and work again. And I made a New Year's commitment, to myself that, and I couldn't grieve because I had I was spiraling, right? I'm the baby. So my New Year resolution was okay, it's time to get back in the saddle and it's time to do some things different. I'm limiting myself to people. I've ended some friendships that should have been gone, but the only reason we were still friends was because we've been knowing each other a lot of years, but it served no value.
That history, man, that history always comes up.
No, I love that.
Hey, listen. And I put up some negotiables. These things got to be in place before you become a part of my circle again, because right now you're toxic. And losing my mother did something to me. It made me think about my immortality and my mortality. So that's where I am now. And I feel good. I feel better. I'm really protecting myself. I don't overextend. I'm communicating. I'm saying no a lot. Right. So I put it right here, starting January. about what I wanted to do going forward with 2022. And so not resolutions, just really, hey, this is what we're finna do. And that's what it is. I'm cutting the fat out. So I'm trying to do better. Thank you for asking.
It looked like you doing better. So yes.
Anna and I are both mothers, and we really want to give you our condolences for the loss of your mother. And just for being so honest and transparent about all the ways you are committing to yourself. And we ask this question at the end of every panel because we care about you. We care about you surviving and thriving and living your best life, not because of just the work that you do, because we want you to succeed. Right. And we want folks in the reproductive health rights and justice movement to care for one another a little bit deeper beyond the work.
And you know what? It's needed. Why y'all live in different cities?
I mean, I take a trip.
I'm looking for my tribe.
I get on planes, like the pandemic stopped me for a minute, but listen,
I'm looking for my tribe. Because I think sisterhood is really important. And it's really, my friends say I'm too serious. But I mean, I have to be. I don't think it's serious. I'm just, what's the word I'm looking for? I just don't have time for nonsense, right? Because I have things to do. And then I love intellectual and stimulating conversations. I don't like talking about what shoes you finna buy and where you're going to shop. That's just not my thing. I like talking about, relevant CNN, like what's going on in the world. Like that's you have my attention all day long. I'm happy. So, but that's just how I am. And, I'm looking for my tribe. Like, where y'all at? Hey, I need to take a trip too.
We're your tribe. We're here. Anna, myself, and Black Millennials for Flint.
Absolutely. I love Miss Adams. She's a wonderful person. When you can catch up with her.
Well, so as we wrap up just tonight, we're not done, obviously, but as we wrap up tonight, I just want to say thank you for sharing your wisdom, your thoughts, for being transparent, for sharing your highs and your lows and your truth. Could you just let our viewers know where they can find you again? Shout out the magazine and the podcast and all those things so we can continue to follow this work and be supportive however we can.
Okay, so I'm Gwendolyn Clemens, and I am the Executive Director of Relationship Unleashed. We're located in Memphis, Tennessee, home of the King, Elvis Presley. So we are on all social media platforms, and if you can remember the word unleashed, you will find us. So the magazine is called The Unleashed Voice. The Unleashed Voice. And we also have a radio and a talk show. It's the same name. It's just the Unleashed Voice Radio and Talk Show. We have a YouTube channel called The Unleashed Voice. Relationship Unleashed. We're on our social media channels, and a podcast called The Unleashed Voice Radio Show and Talk Show. I just uploaded the podcast for the series that we did last month, all three talks. So if you enjoy podcasts, you can find us on all of the podcast channels and listen to those series. They were great. We had two pastors and a PhD doctor, a doctor with his PhD on those studies. So we would love to follow us, look us up. Our email address is accessible on our website. The Unleashed Voice magazine is a bi-monthly publication. We were in 36 cities prior to the pandemic. And then when everything shut down, nobody wanted to take magazines because they thought that the virus lived on the paper. Right. So you can look at a digital copy on Issuer, ISSUU.com, or through our website. And we're getting ready for our March, April issue right now. We're getting ready. We're going to layout stage, and we should be out on the street by March 10th, I hope. And we ship anywhere in the United States. So the magazine to ship is $1.99 plus shipping. We have no control over that. So the total cost is $4.99 post office charge. But we would love to have you. And we've been fortunate. So we've been 7 years for the radio show and Relationship Unleashed, 6 years for the magazine. And we're still here. We're a small Black-owned business, and we're still here.
That's beautiful. Maybe Anna and I will be on the air for all those years as well. We got to follow your lead.
We can definitely set up. It's Women's Month in March, so we can talk about this again.
We ready to go. I want to thank all our viewers. We look forward to you joining us every fourth Wednesday of the month. In the meantime, please make sure to follow the podcast, buy the magazine, y'all. I know y'all are buying other stuff on Instagram. You can buy the magazine, donate to the organization. Please continue engaging with Black Millennials for Flint on social media, and share this episode with a friend, your network, a neighbor, anyone in your community. Peace, y'all. Please take care. And we're sending you lots of love and blessings.
Night.
Bye.